6 Travelers. There was once a soldier who had served bravely in the army, but when the war came to an end, he received his discharge and a memorable 3 farthings as a salary for all his years of service. "Lack a day! I don't like this," he said to himself. "If I find the right people, I shall make the king give me all the treasures of the kingdom." And thumping his fist with anger, the soldier stamped off. By and by he met a man who had just uprooted 6 trees, as if they were the stalks of corn. The soldier marveled at his strength and asked him to travel with him. "That I will do, and gladly," replied the man. "But first I shall take this bundle of firewood home to my mother." Taking up one of the trees, he wound it around the other 5, and raising the bundle to his shoulder, took it away. Soon he returned and said, "We two shall get along in the world." They had not gone far before they came upon a hunter who was kneeling on one knee, aiming with his gun. The soldier asked him what he was going to shoot, and he replied, 2 miles from here a fly is sitting on the branch of an oak tree, and I wish to shoot out its left eye." "Oh, come with us," said the soldier, "for if we 3 are together, we shall surely get on in the world." The huntsman consented and went with them. Soon they saw 7 windmills, whose sails were going round at a rattling pace, although there was no wind. At this sight the soldier said, "I wonder what drives these mills, for there is no breeze." They went on, but they had not gone more than 2 miles when they saw a man holding one nostril while he blew out of the other. "My good fellow, what are you doing?" asked the soldier. "Didn't you see the 7 windmills 2 miles from here?" replied the man. "I am blowing to make their sails go round." "Oh, then, come with us," said the soldier, "for if 4 people like us travel together, we shall soon get on in the world." So the blower got up and accompanied them. In a short while they met another man, standing on one leg. The other leg was unbuckled and lying by his side. The soldier said, "You have done this, no doubt, to rest yourself." "Yes," replied the man. "I am a runner, and in order that I may not spring along too quickly, I have unbuckled one of my legs. When I wear both, I go as fast as a bird." "Well then, come with us," said the soldier. 5 such fellows as we will soon get up in the world." The 5 travelers went on together, and soon met a man who had a hat which he wore over one ear. The soldier said to him, "Manners, manners! Don't hang your hat on one side like that. You look like a simpleton." "I dare not do otherwise," replied the other, "for if I set my hat straight, a frost so sharp will come that the birds in the sky will freeze and fall dead on the ground." "Then come with us," said the soldier, "for it is odd if 6 fellows like us cannot quickly get up in the world." These 6 companions came to a city where the king had proclaimed that whoever would win a race with his daughter should become her husband. But if he lost the race, he would also lose his head. The soldier heard of this and asked that his servant be allowed to run for him. The king agreed, but said the soldier as well as the servant would lose his life if the race were lost. The soldier agreed and bade his runner buckle on his other leg to make sure of winning. The race was from Palace Gate to a distant mountain spring. The first to bring back water from the spring would be the winner. Accordingly, the runner and the princess each received a cup, and the race was started. The princess ran with the speed of a young deer, but in less than a minute the runner had passed her and was out of sight. In a short time he came to the spring and filled his cup. He started back. He had not gone very far when, feeling tired, he lay down to take a nap. Meanwhile, the princess had arrived at the spring and was returning with her cup of water. When she came upon her opponent lying asleep, her eyes sparkled wickedly, and emptying his cup, she ran on still faster. All would now have been lost if the huntsman had not been standing at the castle watching the runners with his sharp eyes. When he saw what the princess had done, he loaded his gun and shot so cleverly that he carried away the rock under the runner's head. This awakened the runner. Jumping up, he found his cup empty and the princess far ahead. However, he did not lose courage, but once again ran to the spring and, filling his cup, started back. He ran so fast that he passed the princess and won the race with a good 10 minutes to spare. The king and his daughter were disgusted that a common soldier should win a princess for a bride, and they plotted how they could get rid of him and his companions. But at last the king said, "Do not distress yourself, my dear. I know a way to prevent their return." Then he called to the 6 travelers and led them into a room with a floor of iron, doors of iron, and windows guarded with iron bars. In the room there was a table set with choice delicacies. The king invited them to enter and refresh themselves. As soon as they were inside, he locked and bolted all the doors. That done, he called the cook and commanded him to keep a fire lighted beneath the room until the iron was red hot. The cook obeyed, and the 6 companions sitting at the table soon began to feel quite hot. As they grew hotter and hotter, they tried to leave the room and found the doors and windows all locked. Then they realized that the wicked king meant to roast them alive. "This is where I come in," cried the man with the hat. So saying, he put his hat on straight. Immediately such a frost fell that all the heat disappeared. 2 hours passed. The king thought the 6 unwanted guests must be roasted, and he opened the door and went in to see them. But as the door was opened, all 6 stood shivering before him and asked to come out to warm themselves. For they said the cold in the room was so intense that all the dishes of food were frozen. In great anger, the king went down to the cook. He asked why his instructions had not been obeyed. The cook pointed to the roaring fire and said, "There is heat enough there, I should think." The king was obliged to admit that there was, and he saw that he would not be able to get rid of his visitors in the way he had planned. Again, the king began to wonder how he could rid himself of his guests. Finally, he summoned the soldier and said, "Will you take money and give up your right to my daughter? If so, you may have as much as you can carry." "Well, my lord," replied the man, "give me as much as my servant can carry, and you are welcome to keep your daughter with you." This answer pleased the king, and the soldier said that he would send his servant to fetch the sum of money in 14 days. During that time he had tailors make him a gigantic sack. As soon as it was ready, the strong man who had uprooted the trees took the sack and carried it to the king. At the sight of him, the king was filled with dismay and said, "What a powerful fellow this must be!" And he sighed heavily, for he saw that he would have to give up much more gold than he expected. The king, first of all, had a ton of gold brought. 16 ordinary men were required to lift it, but the strong man, taking it up with one hand, shoved it into the sack, saying, "Why don't you bring more at a time? This scarcely covers the bottom of the sack." So the king ordered one wagon load of gold after the other, till 7,000 wagons, all laden with gold, had been brought, and all these the strong man pushed into his sack. Still it was not full, and the strong man offered to take whatever was brought, if it would but fill his sack. So they brought cups and plates and jewels and silk and fine furs, until at last the man said, "Well, I must make an end to this, and besides, if one sack is not quite full, why it can be tied up so much easier." So saying, he hoisted the sack upon his back, and he went away. When the king saw this one man carrying away all the riches of his kingdom, he became extremely angry and ordered his soldiers to pursue the man and bring him back 2 regiments on horseback. 2 regiments on horseback took off after the man, who by now had met his companions. The soldiers soon overcame the 6 travelers and shouted out to them, "You are our prisoners! Lay down the sack of gold!" The strong man did not answer, but the blower spoke up. "What is that you are saying?" asked the blower. "You will make us prisoners? Well, first you will have to dance in the air." So saying, he held one nostril, and with the other blew the 2 regiments away into the sky. One sergeant begged for mercy, as he was a brave fellow, undeserving of such disgrace. The blower sent a gentle puff after him, and brought him back without harming him. Then he was sent back to the king with a message that whatever number of soldiers he might send, all would be blown into the air like the first lot. When the king heard this message, he said, "Let the fellows go. I made a bargain, I must put up with it." So the 6 companions took home all the wealth of the kingdom, and sharing it with one another, lived contentedly all the rest of their lives. The end.